Paul in Maine had an experience with what might have been a Dogman. Now, this happened to Paul in 1977 in Jackman, Maine. And in the spring of 1977, he bought a camp out in the woods, and it was near a lake. And for the first few weeks staying at the camp, nothing strange had happened. But as time progressed, things were getting really, really bizarre. But the first instance of something unusual was during the evenings, right when it was dusk. Him and his wife would sit out on the porch as it was becoming night. And they'd enjoy drinking. And his wife had pointed out, says, hey, way out in the woods, I think I saw like a light. And it was changing colors from like blue to green to like red. So Paul watched and he said, yeah, there's lights way out in the trees in the distance, kind of like slowly shifting and changing. And this would last about a minute or two and completely dissipate. And nothing else would happen. And so they thought, okay, well, maybe they blamed it on, nearby waterways. Maybe some people were out there. They couldn't really explain it. And another few weeks go by, and they have this outbuilding across from their yard, and it's like a shed. And one day they wake up one morning, they go out there, and that shed is just totally demolished, and it is torn completely apart. And they blamed it on bears, and they thought, well, were we keeping our trash in there? And his wife was like, no. So they couldn't really explain what was in there that had attracted an animal. I mean, they said the doors were just ripped right off the hinges, and there was holes torn out into the siding, and they just didn't bother to repair it. It was irreparable. And so that happened. And then a few nights later, they wake up in the morning, and he described that there was in his yard a circle of these big, like, stones just placed in a perfect circle in his yard. He's like, okay, somebody's pulling our leg. So he drives up to his nearest neighbor, knocks on the door and says, hey, we've been having these, our shed got destroyed, and now we woke up and there's a ring of stones in our yard. Are there, any teenagers around playing any pranks? Have you seen anything? And what's going on? Who's messing with my property? And his neighbor, who was an older man, wanted nothing to do with this. And he said, don't you ever come back on my property again talking about this crap. Don't even step foot on my property again. Paul left. He went and told his wife. He says, hey, that neighbor was really hostile. So they never got an explanation for the demolished shed or the ring of stones in his yard. So as, summer's progressing, they see just, occasional strange things. They still see the weird lights. Not every night, just on occasion. Away out in the woods. But during one of these evenings, they're sitting out there, and his wife says, what's out there? And he said, that's just a bear. I said, it was across, like, the way his property was. They had this beautiful, like, field-like property, and then there was a tree line way out ahead, and they could watch the tree line. And they'd see all kinds of wildlife, but this particular night, they were watching what looked like a bear, and it was his wife that was like, I don't know. You know, she was apprehensive about it. And Paul's like, that's just a bear. It's Maine. Everything's good. We don't, have to fear the bears. They live here. This is their home, too. But she kept saying, I don't know. She says, there's just something off about it. And as they're still watching it, and they see these lights out in the trees just slowly, shifting and changing, they watch this thing stand up. And it is 7 feet tall. Or about, maybe even taller than that. They actually could not gauge the height of it because it was so far out. But Paul knew through watching it that this wasn't a bear. He said the shoulders, the arms were long and skinny. They had some muscle to them. And it comes, further away from the tree line towards them. And they say that it is starting to jog at them at a very fast pace. And they both get up as fast as they can, and they freaking lock the doors. And they close the curtains. And they never hear anything throughout that night. But when they wake up the next morning, they go out and they find these big rocks lined up on their porch. They're like 7 stones just lined up right in front of the door area. They open up the door and there's the stones. And they were so freaked out by that now they were not even going to contact nobody. So they decide to go pack up everything they have, and they were going to leave. And they left. And they actually sold their property months later to somebody else. And they never returned back to the town. But that is their experience now. I actually don't know if that is a Dogman, but that is what he had detailed. That what it could have been. It could have been a Sasquatch, I don't know. But whatever it was a hostile presence. And Paul and his wife were not going to stick around for that. So that's his story. Now, if you guys have any scary stories of yourselves, you can go ahead and email me and I can read them out. And I hope to keep making more videos. And thank you.